to Cycle 1, Week 3. My name is Rebecca Skillen. I am a tutor for this school year for the journeymen and ladies. So for those from my community that are watching this for review or for reference because their kids can't remember what we talked about or how a song went, here you are. Again, I have found as a tutor with mentors on YouTube sharing their experiences, I decided to follow Love Mrs. C's suggestion of doing geography first, and that has just changed our morning. So I started with geography first, and I love Mrs. C's idea for Judah, Israel, Phoenicia, Judah, Israel, Phoenicia, Judah, Israel, Phoenicia, Hebrew Empire. And then it's to the tune of the wise man built his house upon the rock. So Judah, Israel, Phoenicia, Judah, Israel, Phoenicia, Judah, Israel, Phoenicia, Hebrew Empire. And then Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea. Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea. Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea, Hebrew Empire. And I think that's 3 or 4 times. And we pointed to the spots on the map while we sang that song. So, you know, I mean, we could have just kept singing it all day. One other thing that I told them was a little poem story, not really a poem, because I know people learn things differently. I'm very, very song oriented and music oriented, and I try to respect those who are not necessarily song oriented, so that they're not overwhelmed every week with new songs for every single thing. Hebrew, what is going on with your empire? Judah is down there hanging out with the Dead Sea. Israel is crying a river Jordan. Atop, disciples are being scared at the Sea of Galilee. And Phoenicia is up there writing an alphabetic melody. So however they wanted to remember that. After that, we go into math. We sit at the table for geography. I pre-color code the maps so that they know where things are, and then we make sure we know where they are after 1 or 2 repeats, and then we start erasing. Erase Judah, erase Israel, erase Phoenicia. Okay, show me Judah, show me Phoenicia, show me Israel, you know, out of order, however we're gonna do it. So the maps get cleaned while we're doing our memory work. And at that point, since they've been sitting at the table for a little bit, it's time to get their wiggles out. We do math next. And what I've been doing is the last 2 weeks, they loved it. And so we're sticking with it right now. And that is the agility ladder. So one person is jumping back and forth. Like, I didn't tell them they had to go super fast, but they get their wiggles out like crazy. So we had actually all 7 of the kids this week. And so I knew after the 5th kid that we were gonna skip count. So for number 6 and 7 of the repeats, we skip count. But for the first 5, we do the math facts. And so while we're saying the math facts as fast as we can, so this week it was 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15. And I have the kids standing next to me so they can see the equation, and we just bam, 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 bam. And then while the first person's still doing their wiggles, we do the 6s as fast as we can. And then, you know, we trade out. Next person is doing the agility ladder, and we're going through the memory work again. This week, I kind of threw it out there. I was like, you guys want to say high voices? And so for one section, we did high voices. For the next section, we did low voices, and they loved it. So we'll probably throw in some funky voices. Oh, they came up with hold your nose while you say them. So that was one of the sessions of saying all the math facts as fast as we could. And then we skip count, like I said, for number 6 and 7. And then bam, we're done with math. Move on to English. So we are learning the a section of hand motions. I'm sure there's a few different tweaks out there. The ones that I taught in class were along, so you're walking along the path, along, amid, among, and then we make around, at, atop. Okay, along, amid, among, around, at, atop. So we got that part of our board. Then we go into history and science. History was tell me about the Greek gods and Roman gods. And I found, and I doubt you can see it, but I have a king's crown, a queen's crown, crossed swords, a heart, a messenger looking guy for like text messages, a book, and water. So that helped me because I was kind of curious on what they were. I knew some of them, but I couldn't remember all of them. So it was a lot easier for us to just sing the song. But for the first one, I did show them some hand motions if that helped anybody. So kings, Zeus, Jupiter, and then we flipped it over, Hera, and see, I can't do it with the motions. Hera, Juno, Aries, Mars, the sign for war, Aphrodite, Venus, we made that little, beating heart, Aphrodite, Venus, Hermes, Mercury. We ran like we were messengers. Some of them did the Heisman Trophy. So we're running. Athena, Minerva, we get wisdom. And then Poseidon, Neptune, swimming for the ocean. So the song is fantastic. It goes super fast. So we practiced it a little bit before we sang the song because there's only one or two in my class that have done this cycle before. I have a couple other kids that have done CC before, but they hadn't done cycle 1 yet. I'm one of those people. This is my first time to do cycle 1. I've done cycle 2 and 3. Now we're on to cycle 1. What are some parts of an animal cell? Like I said, I did a lot of songs last year, and so I'm trying to change it up just a little bit. So if you have a song that you like for science, because I know some of the kids who have done cycle 1 before, they have a song that they like, great. We did nucleus, it's in the center, nucleus, cytoplasm. But yeah, I couldn't remember which one was on the list first. Vacuole, mitochondria, cell membrane. We flipped it over for M and then put our hands on our hips for they are the cell membrane is the gatekeeper. And then Golgi Bodies. And this is a favorite for anybody who's doing motions for Golgi Bodies. It just seems to fit. So nucleus is in the center. Cytoplasm is just a C, kind of holds everything together. They kind of float around in the cell with the cytoplasm holding everything together. Mitochondria, M for mitochondria. V is vacuole. We talked about how the vacuoles can be refrigerators. They can store things, but they also get rid of the waste like a vacuum. So vacuoles. Cell membrane, flip it over, put it on your hips. Cell membrane, gatekeeper, and Golgi Bodies. And I made a mental note that there were 6 parts of the cell that we were learning this time so that I didn't forget one like last week when we were doing the kingdoms of living things. So, and they remembered, they reminded me. And I think they had a lot of fun knowing that, their tutor forgot one. And so they liked being able to tell me that they watched the video and they knew which one I missed. Next was Latin, and I kind of went over it with them of the sounds. I did have a handout that kind of had pictures to kind of help remember what the sounds were. I, had to remember. And then, because I'm not singing the song, I have to remember. Aram, like your A with a drum, aram, and then east, os, ease. So in the air as a geese, ease, touching the moss, os, ease, ease, os, ease. So that's how we did that. But we just sang through the song that they do. You sing it, you do it once, you get it 3 times. So our review of kind of just practicing if they wanted hand motions was our first 3 times, and then the last 3 times we're singing it with the song. So timeline. I always link to Wanderstruck Family. I really like how she talks about ASL. Some of her motions are just a little bit different than maybe what you find if you're looking at CC Connected or other things out there. But I really appreciate her insight into what ASL is, and so making sure that if we are doing a sign, that's appropriate or not. So Hinduism and is that what we're doing? Yeah. I'm so, I know the timeline song, and so I'm not sure what week we're in. Hinduism in India, Phoenicians, make a boat. Phoenicians in the alphabet, A, B. Olmecs of Mesoamerica, we make an O and wrap it around our face. Israelite Exodus, so we part the C. And desert, D, desert wandering. Israel conquest, so we're conquering, conquest and judges. Greek Dark Ages, Israel's United Kingdom. Okay, so Hinduism in India, Phoenicians and the alphabet, Olmecs of Mesoamerica. If I don't sing the song, I can't remember. Israelite Exodus and desert wandering. Israel conquest and judges. Greek Dark Ages, Israel's United Kingdom. And I did ask them, again, love Mrs. C is working with masters, and I'm kind of smack dab in the middle with journeymen, about what was the timeline card before, because they always know the after. They keep singing it. It doesn't matter if they've had cycle 1, cycle 2, or cycle 3. They just keep singing the rest of the timeline. But she had a great idea of asking them what timeline event happened before this week's. And they did. They had to go back and figure it out. So that was a lot of fun. A little bit of review, a lot of fun. So after that, we actually went outside to do science. We did blending and I know what we did, but I can't remember the title of it, ground temperature. It was so much fun, and we had a God moment. So we were walking outside on our way to our segmented area for blending, and an earthworm was inching well, it wasn't an inchworm. An earthworm was working its way past the sidewalk, and we were like, hold on, this is fantastic. This is God's, a God experience of what we're about to go do. So we talked about the earthworm, and we talked about, can you see it? It was really easy to spot. We were all like, don't step on it, when we were on the sidewalk. And we talked about what color it was and why aren't earthworms bright orange? And so we just kind of had our blending lesson of questions and all of that before we even got to our science area. And, I think it was my daughter picked up the earthworm, put it into the grass, and we're like, can you see it? And of course they were like, oh yeah, we can see it right there. I said, but how hard is it to see? Shut your eyes, turn around, and now look again. Don't look at it, look around it. Is it hard to see? If it was a brighter color, would it be easier to see? What if God had made the earthworms bright orange? And we all said, well, it'd be really easy for the birds to find them. But if the birds got all the worms, then our dirt wouldn't be as good. That's what a kid came up with. Because the earthworms have a purpose in our earth. So it was really great. It was such a God moment and such a great thing to be outside and have that earthworm just waiting for us to start the introduction to our blending experience with camouflage, and they had a blast. Oh my gosh, it was so great. Some of them were neon green, and so they were easier to see than what normal green would be. But it's just a lot of fun. And we went straight into that, so we forgot to put our thermometers in the ground right away, but we were already doing well with time. So once we got done with the redistributing of the camouflaged animals in the grass, we went and did our ground temperature experiment. And while we were waiting, because we forgot to put it in the ground before we did our blending experiment, we found crickets and ants and seed pods from a tree that was really an interesting looking tree, and we still don't know the name of it. And so we got to see different sizes of crickets and how they camouflage and how we could see them on the asphalt, but once they jumped into the grass, it was a lot harder to find them. So we had a second blending experiment while we were waiting for our thermometers to do their thing underground and in the sun. And we had a great conversation with that too. So that was our science. Then we went in, we had our presentations. The kids in Journeyman, it is just so neat to watch them grow in their 2 minutes and watch them just expand on their presentation skills. Our first week we worked on just kind of breaking the ice, getting used to being around each other. Last week we worked on taking a deep breath and waiting for the audience for a moment. And then this week we worked on focus. Taking a deep breath was last week. This week was focus. Taking that time, that pause to make sure the audience was ready, and then presenting your presentation. And they're soaking it up like sponges, and it's so much fun to watch. So that was presentations, and then we had fine arts, and my own kiddos and I are reading this book, Ra the Mighty, the Great Cat, or just Ra the Mighty Cat Detective. We've had this book for a while. My son read it a couple years ago, I think, or in 2020, I can't remember. But he would laugh when he would read this. And so this year I was like, oh my goodness, it's historical extreme fiction, because it has a talking cat and a talking scarab beetle and a talking leopard and a talking baboon. I think so far those are the only talking animals we've met. But of course there's history, there's ancient Egypt things that we're hearing about, and I have kind of done a little bit of an Egypt theme in our fine arts just because, I don't know, it's just fun. So this is illustrated, a few pictures, not a lot, but I found a picture of all of Ra, and then I drew it upside down. So the kids were a little intimidated. Now, I am not one to cover up the image. I show them the image upside down, full image upside down. And we talk about how sometimes when you look at an image initially, or you look at life initially, you can get overwhelmed with what it looks like, what you're experiencing. But if you can turn it upside down or turn the situation upside down and look at it from a different perspective or a different point of view, it's going to give you a much richer experience. And if it's a problem, maybe you'll see the solution if you can change your perspective a little bit. So I think I even did it, well, I didn't tutor up until week 6 my first year. So I did not do upside down drawing my first year of tutoring. But last year and this year, I prefer to show them the whole picture. The separating it is not in the guide. I stuck to the guide. I think there's value in talking about what does the picture look like differently. This looks like a cartoon cat. Show your brain, talk to your brain, and tell your brain this is not a cat. This is a straight line with 2 curved lines, and then we moved down. I was inspired by Art with Allie, and I always link the people I talk about. So I followed Art with Allie's inspiration for upside down image and recreated it with my own picture and drawing. And this was hard for my 7 to 9 year olds. Some of them were really struggling. I was so thankful to have 2 moms in the room today, or sorry, not today, Tuesday. And we all worked really hard on encouragement and just looking at the elements of shape. And one of the moms even worked on the project, which she had said, oh, I'm gonna do this, but I'm not so sure. And it was really neat to see people of all ages realizing, hey, we can do this, because that was my aha moment. Fine arts, this drawing section stretches me every year because this was not a skill that I was encouraged or did in my learning years. So that was our morning until review. I had done Would You Rather the last 2 weeks, but I wasn't sure if I would get through enough weeks with Would You Rather. So, still using my magic bag. I love this thing. And I use the flashcards from CC. They're fantastic. I am not somebody to reinvent the wheel and buy lots of colored paper, so I pay for it, and I am so thankful I do every year. So I use a magic bag. I put the cards that we're going to use in the magic bag. They draw from it. When they're done drawing, when they're ready to put it back in, there's a magic way to do that. And so their card goes in one side, and then it's time for another kid to pick. This week, I'm not sure if I have the box anywhere, but that's okay, because I didn't take the box with me. We did Flickin' Chicken. These are, thank goodness they do not squeak. This was hilarious and crazy all at the same time. I did put the bullseye in a basket and brought that with me because I had tried this at home and it's actually really hard to get it on the bullseye. So we did Flickin' Chicken in a basket. And they stood in a line. They drew a card. They asked the question and they had the answer. So if they wanted to look, they could look, but everybody answered the question, and the person who asked the question got to toss a chicken into the basket. And it was hilarious. So we got through all 3 weeks, and probably could have done a little bit more. When they hit a geography card, we all come into the center. I pull out the map, show me this, show me that, tell me where this is, and go from there. So I'm really looking forward to next week, and go from there. So I want to encourage anyone who is thinking about helping out their community. Talk to your tutor, talk to your director about what you can do. One of the things that we are encouraging our moms in our community is to take a section, whether that's fine arts, whether that's presentations. Presentations are super easy. You just pick the kid to go next. And most of the time they decide when they want to go next or draw a name out of a hat. But or the science, or a new grammar, or pick a subject from new grammar that interests you and try it out with the class. I'm happy to encourage any mom from my group or any other group that wants some encouragement, advice, suggestions on how to do either a whole new grammar section, a science section, an art section, review, presentations, or even just one subject. To get your feet wet and see what it's like. Because I will tell you that tutoring has been an absolute blessing to me and my family. I will not sugarcoat it. It was a little crazy being thrown in right at 6 weeks and taking on a whole class for 6 more weeks plus a second semester. And so I don't want anybody to have that experience that I did. I want to help walk with you and encourage you. And when and if the time is right, that you would want to be a full-time tutor, I will celebrate that journey with you. but being a sub would be really helpful for me. I hope to not be sick at all this year, but I can't guarantee that, or, you know, my kids getting sick this year. They have been healthy. They have not gotten sick during community, but you know, that reality is there. So the more substitutes we have, the more confident moms and dads in our community that we have, the stronger we're going to be, and the better and best year is at our fingertips. So have a wonderful, wonderful week. And for my community, I am so looking forward to seeing you on our community day for week 4. Have a great week.